From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Good morning. I'm glad you could be with us. We've got a diverse panel here today. We've got Jeff Dickerson, of course, our regular, and Theron is substituting. Theron Johnson, thank you for being here. And we've got Megan Hansen. And just as a footnote for our viewers, Megan is running for the National Young Republican Chairmanship, and we'll know what happens in August. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Megan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one of your favorite topics, Theron, and that is the insurance hikes that are being fostered by Obamacare. We saw the story last week of double-digit premiums here in Georgia, and there's some sticker shock. What do you have to say to my view that this is all part and parcel of Obamacare?
Well, Phil, now you got to be very sort of nonpartisan and moderate today. Now you're standing in for Dick. But no, listen, Obamacare, when it started, it rolled out. It wasn't perfect, but I think you've seen the results of millions and millions of people now who are able to have access to health care. Now, one of the things that I think the viewers need to know is that these tax hikes would have probably occurred whether Obamacare is in place or not. But the truth of the matter is that the government has got to find a way to try to reduce some of these rates. I mean, they're just out of control, and I don't think Obamacare is solely to blame, but definitely the Congress is going to have to look at the Obamacare and the revisions and really figure out how we can make sure that the insurers are protected.
And speaking of Congress looking at Obamacare, our very own Representative Austin Scott, Congressman Scott, introduced the American Health Care Reform Act this week. And so hopefully that will be Congress's addressing exactly. It abolishes, or excuse me, repeals Obamacare, establishes a patient-centered reforms, and develops free market solutions for America's healthcare sectors.
While we're at it, I think we should probably repeal Medicaid and Social Security and every other social program. This thing's been around for 3 years.
I knew we were going to agree with something today.
See, there you go. There you go. She wants to do
I'm
that.
finally happy that the Republicans, for once, and it's good that as a congressman from Georgia, for once have actually offered a solution. I mean, for 4 years now, almost 4 years, it's been, we need to repeal Obamacare.
Have you ever heard of Congressman Tom Price from Georgia? He's had a bill there for the last 3 years.
Yeah, but it wasn't a viable solution. I mean, now they're finally coming together to try to offer some type of solution, but no one wants to admit that Obamacare is working.
Well, Jeff, let's talk about something you and I have talked about before, and that is people are having trouble getting their own doctor. The law has dynamited the doctor-patient relationship.
Oh my
and even
God,
you
I
have
think
to be
that's
concerned
absurd.
about that.
You know, what the fact of the matter is that you've got millions of people who are covered now who are not covered before Obamacare went into effect. And if the state of Georgia were to take the step that other states have done and expand Medicaid, we'd have more folks, hundreds of thousands of more Georgians covered and receiving medical coverage. We have hospitals closing in Georgia. Many community hospitals have already closed. There was a story last week about Southern Regional in Clayton County. Clayton's only hospital is on the verge of closing because it doesn't have the money to support it. And the reason why is because you get all these indigent patients and not sufficient reimbursement. With Obamacare and the expansion of Medicaid, those hospitals stay open. You have an infusion of capital.
Where are you going to get $1 billion over the next 10 years to do all of this? You just wave the magic wand?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what the federal government did. It said, look, we'll pay 90% of the tab. We'll give you $30 billion. All you got to do is put up $3 billion. And we thought that was a bad deal.
And where does that money come from, Jeff? That comes from taxpayers such as myself and Phil and you and Theron. So, it doesn't just come out of thin air. Well, it comes from my pocket.
We do know this. We'll all be paying higher insurance premiums this year. We all agree on that.
But also millions of people are now insured.
Well, did you see the Wall Street Journal headline? Millions of people have become insured because we are subsidizing it, the taxpayers, but then we're still missing people. There's still millions of uninsured.
I tell you what, you probably haven't had the opportunity to look in someone's eyes that did not have insurance, that basically had a tragic event happen to them where they had a ruptured spleen or had internal bleeding or whatever, to basically be able to go to the hospital and know that you are insured and get the proper care. I think that that's a little disingenuous to the millions of people who, while we got to pay a little bit more, and that is true, Megan, but at the same time, it's worth it because now people have the access access to health care, and that's something that the president should be applauded on.
Well, let's move on to Plant Vogtle. How about that? I have been reading some things in the media, and I'm sure you have too, this past week, about some delays over there. They're, of course, building 2 new nuclear units at the plant near Waynesboro. And I thought it was a little unfair to be picking on Georgia Power and the Southern Company, because this is very underreported, in my opinion. The contractors over there, which the company, the utility, has no real control over, have been delayed. And I still think, I would maintain to all of you, that it's still going to be a good deal. Clean, safe nuclear power. We enjoy some of the cheapest rates in the nation. I think this is still a great project, and I hate to see the AJC and some of these other media outlets slanting this to make it look as if this is a bad thing somehow.
Well, you're exactly right, Phil. I mean, listen, Plant Vogtle is going to bring about $3 million in savings. It's going to be a 6 to 8% slight increase to consumers. But at the end of the day, they want to make sure that this plant is built safely and correctly. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the amount of jobs that it's going to help create, and look, all the federal regulations that they have to go through to make sure that this plant is adequately done, let's take a little bit longer to make sure that it's and this is the first nuclear plant that's being built anywhere in the nation in decades.
That's right.
So I think Georgia Power is doing the right thing to try to make sure they educate folks, and it's going to bring a lot of savings to the industry.
And the good news is that the power executives said that they don't expect any more delays. So hopefully we're done with the delays and we're looking for the end result.
I think the Southern Company might even be looking at another site and to build another reactor, so stay tuned for that. Have you heard that, Jeff?
Well, I have heard from the CEO of the Southern Company on that matter, and he's, you know, the precision with which that plant is being built, and under federal regulations. I mean, it's not like they have a choice. It's amazing. And so, yeah, you absolutely have to take your time, do it right. If there's a delay, it is a delay that's completely justifiable.
Well, I wanted to turn to another topic that was in the news last week, and that was an ex-Superior Court judge from Brunswick, Amanda Williams. She was indicted by a Fulton County grand jury, and you know, for violating her oath. And you're an attorney, Megan, and I saw where a lot of these judges, I would say dozens in recent years, when the JQC, the Judicial Qualifications Commission, starts investigating, they resign all of a sudden when they're. Is this what is going on here? Why are we having corrupt judges?
Well, to be fair, this was charges that were, or not charges, but the JQC investigation was started back in 2011, and you're right. Judge Williams did resign, I think, in December 2011, and the charges have just now been brought by the grand jury here in Fulton County for, I think,
false statements.
False statements to the JQC, among other things. And you know, I haven't seen a rash of issues like this, but when we do have one, it's very disappointing from the legal community, because I, as a young attorney, look up to judges and hope that they will maintain their oath. And you know, this is definitely not one of those situations.
It's just a shocker. And there was a slight, just to kind of finish up this segment, there was a slight hint from Governor Deal a week and a half or so ago that the religious liberty bill that's going to come up again, of course, in the General Assembly, that, you know, we don't have to have that so-called discrimination clause, that maybe he would be okay with what they call a clean bill, and that is what I call the 1993 Bill Clinton legislation that preserves religious rights of people.
Look, I think at the end of the day, I mean, the legislature has got to basically come together and really have a really good conversation about this religious freedom bill. I mean, the Mike Jacobs amendment that was introduced basically wanted to put a clause in there about making sure that this bill didn't discriminate against people. And so I think the governor is sort of getting out in front of this to start trying to message around this. But until you can get Democrats and Republicans together to really get in a room and talk about how this is not going to be a bill that hurts our economy and makes, you know, Georgia like Indiana, I don't think we are going to move.
So you don't like the federal law, then?
No, it's not that I don't like the federal law. I just think that Georgians have got to really understand what we're proposing.
You know, I'll tell you, I think that the First Amendment is more than sufficient. And the fact of the matter is, we've got some powerful businesses. You know, it's not just about these legislators. We've got some powerful businesses that think that this is discriminatory, that it gives businesses a right to discriminate against people on a wide range of issues. gender and sexual orientation and all kinds of stuff. I think that the bill, that clause was put in there for good reason. It scuttled the bill. I applauded Mike Jacobs for doing it. I think it ought to stay.
All right, well, Jeff, you have the last word on that topic. When we come back, we're going to talk about Atlanta's rising crime rate. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
Welcome back to the Georgia Gang. I'm Phil Kent, sitting in for Dick Williams, and we're going to be talking about news that came out over the last week, too, with the spike in Atlanta crime. Specifically, the murder rate is double this year what it was last year, and of course, robberies are up. And I'm just going to go around the table here. And Megan, the first question I want to ask all of you is, what is the mayor, Kasim Reed, and the police chief going to do about this?
That's a great question, but I think the first thing you should do is probably reinforce that it's okay to be police. It's okay to police and to arrest people for crimes and investigate crimes as opposed to, just ignoring them or being afraid to do your job. That's what I would
let me push back on that a little bit. I think that and I'm assuming you're referring to some of the incidents that have happened in our country where it's been reported that since the murders of unarmed black men, that there's been a decrease as far as people wanting to apply to be police officers. So no one is pushing back on people being arrested for crimes and being investigated. The challenge is when they get arrested and they're actually beaten to death. Or the challenge is that when they're not even being have an opportunity to be arrested, and they shot in the back. I think that's the thing that we've got to revisit when we look at.
Well, Jeff, what about Mayor Kasim Reed? Just last November, these criminals ran wild on Peachtree Street. They smashed 5 police cars. They smashed windows. Only a couple of arrests.
You're talking about a protest?
Are you talking
about criminals?
I'm talking about crimes.
A band of criminals?
I'm talking about crimes being committed.
What are you talking about?
Remember when they swarmed on the interstate?
That was a protest, Phil. I thought you were talking about street crime.
They're criminals.
Well,
and what is the mayor going to do about it? Well, let me tell you what the mayor's done about it. He's given us 2,000 police officers for the first time that we've ever had 2,000 police officers, right? He's talked incessantly about the recidivism rate and keeping people who have committed crime after crime after crime in jail. And the mayor's been tough on this, hard on this, and hard on other folks for letting them out, judges and others. And so I think that that's what the mayor's doing about it. This notion, this conservative notion that it has something to do with these police killings is absolutely absurd. Police are policing, but they ought not be out there murdering people.
Well, no one is saying that.
But the other thing is, too, let's just focus on the facts. The facts are that crime is down 22% in the last 5 years. And since Mayor Reed,
old news.
That's old news.
That's old news.
But
I'm talking about this year. Aren't you concerned
but here's
about that?
the thing. If you really look at the crime rate, which I hope you guys did, it fluctuates every year. I mean, it's very seasonal. And so during some of the times in summer.
Why do you think it's rising?
Well, it's a lot because kids will get out of school. A lot of these small
so this is no big thing to you?
No, it's a big thing, Phil. And the mayor is not saying that crime isn't something that he's concerned about. But to say that it's out of control and it's rampant, you got to state the facts that it's down 22%. And then also, he said publicly that he basically knows that it's not going to be more than 100 murders. I mean, we haven't had more than 100 murders in the city of Atlanta in the last 4 or 5 years.
Homicides are double this year than last year. Megan, now why is this?
I don't know, but gun violence is also up by 32% within the last year. I think that's a statistic we need to acknowledge, not one over the last 5 years. I also want to point out that gun violence in Milwaukee is up by 180%. Baltimore, it's up by 60%. Chicago by 24%. LA by 25%. And what is the common denominator here?
The Second
Democrat
Amendment.
mayors.
Democrat mayors. And I'm afraid the permissiveness that this is being signaled nationwide is hurting. You're handcuffing the police in all too many instances.
And there's a name for it now. It's called the Ferguson effect.
That's right.
No, listen.
No.
You cannot
Please.
point out a mayor in the United States that has invested more in the police department and being smart on crime than Mayor Reed.
I will give him credit for hiring the police. We're all in favor of that.
And
but then handcuffing them, that's a problem.
Who's
handcuffed?
You didn't want to address what I just said a few minutes ago. Why weren't more of these people arrested? They trashed Woodruff Park. You remember that? Hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars were wasted,
protesters.
and nothing
You started
would
out
happen.
talking about criminals.
When you start breaking the law, it sends a signal to the element out there that I can get away with
You mean
things
like
in
Martin
Atlanta.
Luther King Jr.?
Oh, that's ridiculous
Is
analogy.
it? He broke the law.
You're equating Martin Luther King Jr. to these Occupy
To violent
Atlanta
crimes?
radicals.
Occupy Atlanta. I'm talking about people who are engaging in some degree of civil disobedience.
So you like
can call it
you
what
like
you want,
Smashing
but that's
cars is
exactly what
not
it is.
civil
smashing
disobedience.
police cars.
Here's what I'll say. If you look at what happened in Baltimore, right, and you look at what happened into Atlanta, it's like apples and oranges. Now, the one thing that you don't,
of
the one
course,
thing that, hold on,
but
here's
you
the
don't
thing.
want to let
But it
the
was-
door
but
open.
But to Jeff's point, these were both protests. The mayor, when these people started committing,
You think you don't think they're criminals. You just
no,
think
they're not. They're protesting. Did they kill anyone? Did they shoot anyone? No,
I don't
they
like
didn't.
So there's a
police cars.
threshold for crime now?
No, if you're going
Have
to,
you-
no, you guys are basically quoting homicide.
They
right?
smashed windows. They smashed
you quote a
windows
homicide.
on
and
your
You're
Street.
confusing apples and oranges.
Yeah.
You're confusing people who are engaged in orchestrated protests with street criminals.
Correct.
Okay, well, back
and it's
to-
not. And I'm not going to have that argument.
Street
because
criminals.
it's different.
Street criminals see the permissiveness when they see these protesters running wild. Is my point.
You cannot take people's right away for them to protest, Phil.
No,
And
we
that
don't
seems-
want
and
to.
that seems- and that seems like
oh,
what
that's
you guys are
absurd.
doing.
We're all for peaceful protests, but when they start
Keep it.
smashing business,
So are you saying that those young students down in Kentucky, they got mad because their team, who was undefeated, who was on the verge of becoming national champions, when they committed all those crimes, smashing in windows, basically, just tearing the town up, are you calling those students criminals
You
as well?
just called it a crime.
Yeah.
You just said committing all those
Yeah.
crimes.
No, they
Listen,
were
I don't
arrested.
care.
No, when
I
you-
don't care.
no, when
I don't care
but
who
it's
you are.
not
Lock
homicide.
them up if you're committing all crimes. It's the broken windows theory. If you allow broken windows in a city, then you're going to have more and more crime, and that's where it goes. And this is what liberal mayors don't
And
understand.
what liberal mayor are you talking about? We don't have a liberal mayor in the city of Atlanta. We got a very practical
I know
mayor
you
who's
love
over
him.
there at English Avenue. It's not a matter of loving him.
No.
It's a matter of looking at the record. 2,000 police officers. We've been trying to do it for 30 years. He finally got it done. He's over there in English Avenue
We all gave
trying
him
to
credit. We
trying
all
to
gave him
shut
credit
down
for
these dilapidated communities so that this broken windows effect that you're talking about no longer
Well,
exists.
we'll end on saying again that was nice that he did that. On our next segment, we are going to get into some politics, what we do best, and special elections coming up, so stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
Welcome back to the Georgia Gang. I'm Phil Kent, sitting in for Dick Williams. And we've got some special elections coming up this month and next month. And let's focus on a couple that are coming up very quickly this month. We've got in a large swath of Atlanta the seat of the resigned Tyrone Brooks. It's a predominantly Democrat seat. I think Obama got over 80% of the vote in that district.
I wouldn't run in that district if I were you.
And
Phil.
well, here's the interesting thing, though. This might worry you, Jeff. An independent could beat the Democrats. There's 7 candidates, including Tyrone Brooks Jr., and you've got an independent candidate, John Guest, and in a nonpartisan election, in a runoff, you might not get a Democrat in there.
Oh, yes, plurality.
No, that's not going to happen. There's going to be a Democrat there.
Now, that's a long shot,
Yeah,
right, Megan?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, let's see. There's another one in Forsyth County coming up, and that's the seat of the resigned Representative Mark Hamilton. What's going on in that district?
House District 24, there's 4 people running to my knowledge, 3 Republicans and I believe 1 Democrat. Or at least I think he's a Democrat. He may have registered as a Republican. So Ethan Underwood is an attorney, Sherry Gilligan and Will Kramer. All of those are the Republicans. And then David Van Sant, who donated to Elena Perrin and Michelle Nunn. So,
Democrats. He claims he's a Republican?
I think so. I
Okay.
think that's the word on the street.
There's
so.
nothing wrong with a Republican giving Democrats
Well, he also
money.
voted Democrat up until 2012.
Well, that shows that he's.
Do you give money to Republicans?
I do not.
You can write me a check.
But you know what? Megan may be my first Republican.
Okay.
I give it to you.
Jeff, I know you write checks to Republicans regularly, but
No, not regularly.
I write checks to people who want to, move the country forward in good government. And
well,
so,
a tear is coming coming to my eyes. Thank you for saying
I'm
that.
a little sensitive.
We've got some though in July that we ought to look at, and of course we mentioned Congressman Tom Price earlier in the program, and his wife Dr. Betty Price is looking at the seat that is now vacant because of the death of the late Representative Harry Geisinger. And then you've got a Republican activist, you may know him, Megan, Dave McCleary, and you've got a Democrat in that race. Could a Democrat slip into that seat in a three-way race?
I don't think so.
That's pretty heavy Republican.
I tell you though,
Yeah.
with so low turnout, anything can happen. I mean, because the turnout is going to be extremely
You
low.
are correct.
In all of these contests, exactly right. We've got one in South DeKalb County coming up, I think, on the 16th.
That's right. Tell us about that one.
District 5. It's a seat that was held by Lee May, who resigned it recently because those folks were not being represented, and it's a big field of folks. It's 18 candidates in that race.
Any predictions?
No
Just to get
predictions
into the
from me.
runoff?
Only that the person who's knows the most people is going to win. It's one of at a time like this, the folks who go out to vote are those who have some attachment or acquaintance with the candidate.
Right.
It's just that you talk about low turnout. That's how low it is. I think, and how low it's going to be.
Right. No, I agree with you. No, Megan, in your neck of the woods, we talked about Representative Mike Jacobs, who resigned to take a state judgeship in DeKalb. That's an open seat, and tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a little bit of political juggling. There's so many, moving parts in this one, but so far, it's my understanding that it's House District 80, which includes Brookhaven, some Sandy Springs, and Chamblee. J. Max Davis, who is the current Brookhaven mayor, who's also an attorney, he threw his name in the hat. Catherine Bernard, an attorney, and Lauren Collins, also an attorney. All of those are the Republicans in the race, and then Taylor Bennett, who's the Democrat in the race.
Okay. Again, low turnout, anything could happen. I would think the mayor of Brookhaven would have the edge.
Best name ID for sure.
And his father, Max Davis, was he's deceased, but was a prominent state legislator. So we'll watch out for that one. And when we come back, we've got winners and losers coming up. Stay with us.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Welcome back to the Georgia Gang. I'm Phil Kent, sitting in for Dick Williams, and it's winners and losers time. And I turn to Theron Johnson.
All right, I have a few winners. So first, I want to commend interim CEO Lee May for introducing a tax decrease. First time in DeKalb County since 2004 in his recent budget. I also want to commend the Atlanta Firefighter Department. I don't know if you guys saw it, but these firefighters bravely rescued 2 men who was actually in a manhole. So definitely want to commend them. Also want to, and I don't know if we've done this, really give a big shout out and make the Atlanta Hawks our winners. I mean, even though we came up short again to the finals, I mean, first time in NBA history, the franchise history to go that far. And then lastly, I want to salute Mike Jacobs for becoming the DeKalb state judge. Mike and I started off in politics a few years ago, so very proud to see him becoming a judge. And then my loser is going to be Jim Cooley. This guy took a loaded machine gun into the Atlanta airport. I'm not saying that anyone can't express their Second Amendment right, and it's definitely not illegal to have a gun in the airport. But I think
an AR-15.
But an AR-15, I think that's a little bit crazy and a little bit excessive. So he's my loser for this week.
If he saves the life of some people there,
Oh, that is utterly ridiculous.
that is
I'm going to tell
crazy.
you what. I'm going to have some guys from the hood go over there and sling their stuff in the airport. And maybe legislators will see that.
Give us your
story.
winners and
don't want
losers.
that.
Or maybe some ISIS supporters.
Give us your winners and
with
losers.
their turbans on and their AR-15.
Hello, give us your winners and losers.
Alexis Scott, we love her. She's recovering from a procedure. Our hearts and prayers are with her, and I think that she's going to do really well, of course. Jim Cooley was my loser. I'd like to really salute Michael Thurman, the wonderful job he did as superintendent of the DeKalb County schools for 2 years, really turned it around and put it on a solid footing for the next superintendent. He's the winner as well.
Very good. Megan?
My winner this week is Senator Isaacson. He introduced a bill to increase benefits for veterans, which is very important. People who put their lives on the line to serve our country. So making sure we take care of them is #1 priority. And then my loser, we've already kind of talked about. It's former Judge Amanda Williams for abusing her position as a judicial officer of the court. I mean, it's just, like I said, as a young attorney, that just does not.
You hate to see the rule of law undermined. I've got a few. I'm going to go along with you on the Hawks there. I think they did a good job.
And it was the Hawks. The mayor proclaimed it the city of Atlanta on Hawks Day.
Yes,
this week too,
that's
so,
right.
yeah.
That's right. Also, did you see the big loser? The Atlanta Nobel Summit failed. I think that was a loser, and I think the mayor did the right thing, and everybody that looked pretty screwy from day one. The Braves hiked their ticket prices. That was a loser to me.
Well, they got to get a bullpen too.
They do. The Braves desperately need a bullpen. Stop agreeing with me here.
I'm trying to be nonpartisan today.
And you know what? My loser is Cobb County Commissioner Chairman Tim Lee. The office redecorating, all of that money wasted. The other commissioners didn't even vote on it. So let's have some accountability of the taxpayers' money. Anyhow, we will see you next week on the Georgia Gang. Thanks for being with us.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.